Hello, good evening. A warm welcome from the Renewable Carbon Initiative. I'm Svenja Dahl from Nova Institute, and today I'm here with Mr. Michael Costello. He's a group director at Stahl Holdings in the field Environment, Social and Governance, and holds the MBA of University of Massachusetts in Marketing and Environment, and studied chemistry at University College Dublin. I would also like to introduce a little bit Stahl. Stahl is a Dutch company and global market leader in special chemicals for coatings, processing and the treatment of leather, especially for luxury brands in the automotive sector, garment and home furniture industry. And to give a better feeling what Stahl is doing, they provide the chemicals which give materials the property which that they last longer, feel softer, resist scratching, diffuse heat, and to be more sustainable. And with this, I would like to pose my first question to you, Michael. Where does your motivation come from to switch to renewable chemicals now?
Well, thank you very much for the introduction. Yes, as you say, we're a company that supplies solutions, chemicals to people who make materials that are used for garment and footwear and cars. And one of our strategic objectives is to help our clients to reduce their environmental footprint. So we do that in many ways. We can help them to reduce their water, their energy, their CO2 content with different ways, different solutions, chemicals, and advice even. But of course, a key part of that is to reduce the footprint of the chemical itself that we sell to them, that we provide them. And what we've found over the last few years, as we have started to measure the true environmental footprint of our products, thanks to the technology that has come available for life cycle assessment, we've realized that by far the largest portion of that impact is coming from the raw materials that we buy. It's also coming from our factories and the energy and the CO2 and the carbon that we use to make the products, but not as much as we originally thought. The biggest portion by far is coming from the raw materials. So that means that the raw materials are the chief element of the overall environmental footprint. And then when we dig deeper, we see that most of those raw materials indeed are petroleum-based, fossil fuel-based. So this is what triggered us to say, well, if we really want to make an impact and change the environmental footprint of our own products and those of our customers, then we have to replace those petroleum-based raw materials with something that is renewable carbon as we've defined it more recently. So that's really where it comes from our strategy, from our vision to help our customers to reduce their footprint. That's where it comes. Yeah.
Okay. So you said you want to help your customers to reduce their carbon footprint as well. So do you have already renewable chemicals in your product profile which meet this demand of your customer?
Yes, we do have some. I think it's still a relatively small portion, and we're still in the process of measuring it in a precise way. But it's a relatively small part of our total portfolio, but it is growing very quickly as a percentage. And typically, we would have products that are partially renewable in the sense that some of the raw materials we can already source from renewable carbon content sources, but there still are other raw materials where there just isn't the availability on the market of a renewable carbon version of those. So that's where the research is going right now. But yes, we do have some products in our portfolio that are based on renewable carbon, either partially or fully. Yeah.
Yeah. And is the demand high? Do you?
Well, the demand is not specifically for renewable carbon products because that terminology has not yet really been out long enough, I think, for customers to come to us and say, we want renewable carbon products. It's more something that we are introducing as a concept and a way to describe the sourcing of raw materials from renewable carbon content sources, of course. But there is a demand from the market, in particular the fashion and automotive markets, to provide solutions that are reducing environmental footprint, including carbon footprint, but also other environmental categories. So in the generic sense, there's a strong demand to reduce footprint, but they're not yet specifically telling us to reduce renewable carbon because that really hasn't been part of their language yet. Yeah.
Okay. So you said the garment industry and also automotive industry. Is there also a difference? Do you see a difference from the luxury sector to maybe the other companies in this kind of field? Industry?
Yes, I would say the automotive sector, which is an important sector for us, is quite focused on carbon in terms of carbon content and carbon footprint, whereas the luxury and fashion side of the industry are more interested in traceability, transparency, and all the other environmental categories that are happening down through the supply chain and the origins of your products and the provenance of your products. So renewable carbon comes into both of those, because if we are to adopt renewable carbon in a bigger way, of course it will reduce our carbon footprint, which is what the automotive industry in particular is quite focused on. But also we need to prove the provenance of that renewable carbon content, that it's coming from a good source, that it's coming from, for example, if it's bio-based, that it's coming from oils or plants that are not causing deforestation, and they're not killing habitats of animals that are becoming extinct. So that part of the provenance of it is also very important for us. But yes, it's coming from both segments. But like you say, the auto market seems to be the one more specifically focused on carbon footprint. Yeah.
Okay. Do you realize some preferences of different renewable feedstocks? So, for example, biomass, CO2, or recycling?
No, we don't have a preference, but in terms of availability, there is a big difference, at least for the portfolio that we provide to the market. The availability of bio-based renewable carbon raw materials is much higher. There's much more availability and there's more choice for us. But when it comes to the other two areas, carbon capture or CO2 capture and recycled content, the availability is less, at least for the raw materials that we provide. But there's research going on in all three, of course, and we do have sources of all three. But bio-based is really where the biggest possibilities for us in terms of availability lie right now. Yeah.
And from your customers' point of view, do you see their preference of these three feedstocks?
Well, again, the concept is relatively new for them, and when most customers come to us for reductions in environmental footprint or carbon footprint, they're really looking at natural based raw materials, which of course is only one portion of renewable carbon. It's the bio-based part. So that's the part they have in their head. But of course, when we explain that there's three branches to this, they're completely in agreement, and the concept is quite clear. But at least for those customers that specifically ask us for this type of solution, they're usually thinking of bio-based and something that's coming from the natural world. Yeah.
Okay. You said previously that you need, especially your sector, the chemical industry, needs to look at the source of carbon you use to produce your materials. So therefore, I would come to my last question, because this is perfectly in line with the renewable carbon approach of the Renewable Carbon Initiative. So what was Stahl's goal in the Renewable Carbon Initiative? What do you hope to achieve within the initiative?
Yes. Well, we have our goals as a company, of course, that's separate, but specifically with regards to the initiative, I think what we would like is that the awareness of the concept of renewable carbon becomes accepted in the chemical industry and indeed in the world. So for that to happen, I think we would need to have major chemical companies adopt this concept and this description and this idea, so that all of the big chemical companies are moving in this same direction. And then that will trigger, I think, some real change, because in order for us as a company to accelerate the switch to using non-fossil fuel raw materials, renewable carbon based, we need much more availability from our suppliers on those products also, because right now there are some raw materials for which there are no alternatives that fall into the category of renewable carbon. So for that to happen, we need the whole industry to move on this, not just a small group of interested parties in the Renewable Carbon Institute. So I'm talking about the big chemical companies in the world. That would be our ideal outcome of this initiative, is that they adopt the renewable carbon concept and really put it into place in their businesses so that we can buy those materials easier. Yeah.
Okay, many thanks. Very inspiring answers. Then I would like to close the interview. If you are interested in our initiative, if you are curious now about the Renewable Carbon Initiative, you will find everything on our website on renewablecarbon.com. And here with this, I would like to thank Michael for this interview. Yeah, close the interview slot. And
thank you very much.